All right, this video is to talk a little bit about how to replace and give you a quick rundown on how to replace your LiftMaster. If your chain broke off or you had a sprocket up here that the garage door quit working, this is about 10-year-old garage door opener. The sprocket will shear off here. There's a shear point on it, and it just got old and worn out from a quick movement, and just one day we opened the door and it sheared off. So if your garage door quits working, you can still replace this, and the parts are pretty cheap. And so to begin, you just take out the bolts here, and that'll lift the rail off. Pretty simple. Just move your chain out of the way, and then just disassemble the bolts. And these are 1/2 inch, and these seem to be about 11 millimeter, but that's going to differ from whoever installed your garage door. And take those 4 bolts off. Wires disconnect on the back with a little tab. Just unplug it, and that's all there is to removing it. And then I'm going to pull that off there, and then the next part of the video I'll break down how to take it apart and use these parts to replace the spur gear and the drive, and the ultimately this is what broke off. So you can kind of see there it's snapped off. So we're gonna just go ahead and do the maintenance on it since it's about 10 years old. And that's the part number for your Chamberlain garage door. And I believe this is the Chamberlain Professional LiftMaster 1/2 horsepower. And I'll get back to you with the disassembly here in a moment. All right, as I was pulling this down, I thought I'd take a couple steps to zip tie this rail up. It's pretty heavy, it's long. It's connected to the top of this with 1/2 inch bolts, and then over here, just make note of where your wires are to put them back correctly. They're just push style. This is an older garage door opener, but they're pretty much all about the same and pretty typical. So just make note of that, zip tie that up, and then take your bolts out. And these are 11 millimeter, and then this will just all come right down, and then we'll get to the install. All right, so I took the Chamberlain down, the garage door opener. There's just 8 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Once you lift up on it a little bit, the assembly is going to be a little heavy. It's got the motor attached to it. Disconnect the ends right here along this board, circuit board. That's the control board, and then there's a power wire as well. Just disconnect those 2 connectors. And then down inside here, where the light bulb's attached, there's 2 connectors in there. And then this whole thing will lift out. So there's the casing, and there's the motor, there's the drive gear, and the spur gear and the drive gear. And this thing is filthy. But this is the place. That's the part we're going to replace. That shaft right there, and then you can see where it sheared off at the top. And yours should look similar if that's what happened. To stop it from working, you see the chain leaning loose. This sheared off right there. Just simple part. And then you can see in here, I have an identical shaft and spur gear and the dry gear. So we're just going to take these parts and slowly disassemble this stuff and replace them, and then when I'll come back, I'll talk a little bit. If I ran into any problems, we'll address those as well. Alright, so to get this out, you have to take this plate off, and on the back side of here, there's just 3 little bolts. They are 5/16, and it helps if you have a little ratcheting end to get in there and ratchet it out. And then this loosens this up, so now I can then take this out. I'll remove this collar, and then this whole piece will come out, and I'm going to replace it with that one. Alright, so this part here can be a little tricky. Come in here, bud. Alright, so right here, there's a, there's this collar that holds on. I don't know if you all saw that, but if you pull this apart and separate it, this slides out, and then this gear comes off. So once those 2 pieces are off, real simple, and this whole assembly slides out. And we're already on our way to repairing it. All right. Alright, so all I'm doing here is reassembling with the new sprocket. I'm not going to disassemble all this. This gear is in great shape. I'm just going to grease this. Let me see if I can go at this angle. I'm going to grease this drive gear, and I'm not going to. So I'm just going to replace this gear and not the spur gear, or the drive gear, excuse me. And I'm just going to grease this with lithium grease and get it nice and sticky. Lithium grease sticks, that's what I recommend. Don't use WD-40, it'll just run off. Here, hold that, bud. Thank you. And it's pretty quick. I'm already, 90% done. If you can get these ratcheting style close-in wrenches, then make quick work of this, because you have to get in here in tight little spots. And this is a 5/18. Oh, sorry, 5/16. That's like 18. That's all right. 5/16. And if you're doing this, I mean, you could do some of this with a socket, because you can reach this part up here. But behind the gearing in this plate, it's a little more difficult. Okay. So like down in here, I got to get to this one. It's behind this wire. It's pretty tight, so it's just nice to have the right tool for the right job. Get it on there. And then this one behind here, you can't obviously get a drill motor behind this because it's so tight between these two tolerances. Okay, so that plate's all bolted back in there. This is new and installed. And like before on the old part, we're just going to put the gear back on, and then this is an adjustment gear on the end of your garage door. You don't want to touch any of these adjustments, because they're already in place. You're just going to stick this back on, and I'll line up the hole. There's a hole right here, and snap this little square-shaped retainer in there. And that's all there is to it. This thing is not going anywhere, because this, come over here. This plate, when the other piece broke off, there's washers and bearings behind this. And this allowed this whole plate just to pop off when I replaced it. And you can see all these parts laying over here are from the old unit. So all that stuff's new now, and it's on here. And that's just about it. Then I'm going to put this back together, plug all the wires back in, and remount it. And my garage door will work again. I'll have to put the chain back over it. Here, zoom over there. You can see the chain's kind of laying loose behind right here, behind the ladder. And then that's all there is to it. It's a very simple install. Just take your time and just try to follow any little directions I gave you here. And if you have to go even deeper, you can go in here and pull this assembly apart, which I don't think you'll have to do. But everything else is good to go, and that's all there is to do to fix this sheared off bolt. Garage door company locally wanted $70 for this part. You can get them online for $25, and they want about $100 for the install. So I mean, you can save yourself $140 doing this yourself. This is a $20 fix, and then you don't have to spend $200 on a new garage door, which is what I was looking to do if I was going to get the quiet drive. But since this garage door is in such good shape, this house is newer, I went ahead and just replaced that, and then I'll have a working garage door. Thanks for watching. All right, and lastly, to go ahead and round this video out, I tried to finish it up on that last take, and I just wanted to talk about a couple things that I ran into while I was reinstalling it. Because the drive gear back here broke, the chain's laying loose. So you're gonna have to use a 13 millimeter or a 1/2 inch. They're almost the same. And if you have two 13s or two 1/2s, it's no big deal. But these help a lot with the ratcheting ends. But loosen this up and give yourself a break when you're trying to reinstall the bolts on the top of this rail, because it will be under tension. It just makes it more work. And then make sure that your bolts, go ahead and mark those and make sure that those are put in the same place you had them before, because it was kind of showing that it was the middle ones, but it ended up being a little bit further back. It worked better. And then this rail ties the unit into the drive system. If you don't have that real tight, it's going to cause you issues, because this is really just vertical support, up and down support. This gives you your horizontal or your support along the rail to the garage door and the drive and the chain up there. But yeah, grease your chain. Talked a little bit earlier about lithium grease. I use this gear, when I build repack bearings, I use this high temp gear grease. So I have this stuff laying around. It's lithium. You can also use the spray can style. I thought I had some, but I don't. So I just rub that along the chain, especially around the drive gear on the new gear, and as well as inside. I didn't show that on the video, but I just put some on my finger and ran it around the new gears on the plastic, because you don't want that plastic wear out. And then I'm going to just pop my wires back in here. Pop this cover back off. I'll pop my wires back in here and then plug it back into the ceiling. Also, another maintenance tip, I used some air and sprayed the dirt out of it and cleaned all the circuitry, and I think it's going to work a lot better. I think it's really needed some maintenance. So that's all there is to it. Leave me a message, and if you have any questions, I'll get back to you. But that's how you rebuild your Chamberlain garage door opener. Thanks. So like many of these videos, sometimes the ending ends up being longer and longer as I end up finding out after I've adjusted everything and got the LiftMaster back installed. I was getting, and you can see where this thing's been kind of beat up, where I believe whoever installed this didn't adjust the adjustment here. It just kept slamming into it, and then the gear over the years would wear out and break off. And what gear we're talking about is that drive gear right there with the chain wrapped around it. It just kept slamming it like a hammer, and then eventually this thing would kick off because it would sense resistance. Well, I backed this off about 9 to 12 just flicks of my finger. So we'll say, I don't know, 5 or 6 full rotations back, and I kept opening and closing the garage door until I got a nice smooth transition from this slamming into the door. So it's actually even quieter because of the new gears. So I'd stop it about right there, hit it again, and it would slam. But now you don't hear it slam. So what I did is back this screw off. And then also when I reinstalled all those gears and that sprocket that had the clip in it on the video earlier, this did get moved somehow, because when I close the garage door, if your garage door only closes to about 2/3 of the way or 3/4 of the way down, you'll have to just keep backing that down. And I just kept turning it until I adjusted it. So I'd turn it 3 to 6 times, and it would come down a little lower. Open the garage door back up, close it back, and then I adjust that again, 3 to 6, and then eventually I got it to now where it's operating smoothly. So there's a few little nuances after you get everything put back together, but just like any do-it-yourself, where you kind of start feeling things out and going along. And stop the slamming here. It's quieter operation. The new gear actually works great. Got lots of lithium grease in there to quiet things down, and everything is working as it should. Thanks again for watching.